Alright, so Josh Hart just became eligible for a contract extension with the Knicks, and I honestly think this could be one of the most important decisions New York makes over the next year. Not because Josh Hart is the team's best player, he's obviously not, but because Josh Hart represents something that is incredibly difficult for the Knicks to maintain. The championship culture, the toughness, the chemistry, the sacrifice, and now Josh Hart has a decision to make himself. Does he try to maximize what could be his final major NBA contract, or does he do what Jalen Brunson did and leave money on the table to keep this Knicks championship team together long term? Because the numbers we're hearing are already very interesting. One league source believes a 3-year extension somewhere between 54 to 62 million could be the sweet spot. That's around 18 to 20 million dollars per year, and depending on how this plays out, this could tell us exactly what the Knicks championship window is going to look like over the next few years. Now let's be honest, Josh Hart is not going to win an MVP award, he's not going to average 25 points per game, and he's probably never going to be the guy taking the final shot. But that's not why the Knicks need him. They need Josh Hart because he does everything else. He rebounds, he defends, he pushes the ball, he makes plays, he guards bigger players, and he can play multiple positions. And perhaps most importantly, he brings in energy that this team simply does not have when he's not on the floor. Last season, Hart averaged about 12 points, 7.5 rebounds, and 5 assists, while shooting a career-best 41% from 3. That's an incredibly valuable combination for a player who does not need the ball constantly, and that's exactly why the Knicks love him. He's the ultimate connector. Brunson can dominate the ball, Cat can operate offensively, Mikal can score, and OG can defend, and Hart fills whatever hole is left. That's what championship teams need. Not everyone can be a star, someone has to be the guy who does everything, and that's Josh Hart. Now here's where things get complicated. Josh Hart is currently entering the 2027 season, making approximately $21 million. He's also 31 years old and will turn 32 during the season, and he has a team option for the 2027-28 season. So the Knicks do not have to panic. They could simply let this season play out, but Hart is now extension eligible, and the maximum extension he could sign is enormous, roughly 4 years and $132 million under the rules. Obviously, I don't think anyone expects the Knicks to hand him that type of contract, but that's not realistic for New York's financial situation. Instead, the interesting number is the one coming from league sources themselves. 3 years and $54 to $62 million. That's a much more reasonable conversation, and here's why I think that number makes sense. It gives Hart guaranteed money through age 35, it rewards him for what he's already done, but it does not completely destroy the Knicks' ability to keep the rest of their core together. And this is where Jalen Brunson enters the story, because Brunson already did something extremely unusual. He took a massive discount on his extension. We're talking about an amount that has been reported as more than over $100 million in potential earnings sacrificed compared with what he could have commanded. Why? Because one of the reasons was he wanted the Knicks to have enough flexibility to build a championship roster, and it worked. They won the championship, so now there's an interesting question. Does that create a culture where other players on the team do the same thing? Because Brunson cannot be the only person sacrificing. If Karl-Anthony Towns eventually gets his next massive contract, if OG Anunoby continues making superstar level money, if Mikal Bridges gets another big extension, and Josh Hart demands every dollar he's eligible for, the Knicks eventually hit the wall, and that's the reality of the second apron. You cannot pay everybody, so somebody has to compromise, and Josh Hart may be next. If I'm the Knicks and Leon Rose in the front office, I don't want to insult Josh Hart. He's earned his money, but I also don't want to destroy the team's financial flexibility. I'm trying to find that balance there. So if I'm Leon Rose, I'm looking at something like around 3 years, $60 million, which is pretty much around $20 million per year. It's a clean number. It gives Hart his security that he needs. It keeps him in New York through age 35, and it basically says, we value everything that you bring to this organization. But there is another question. Would Hart accept it? Because Hart could potentially wait, he could play this season, and if he has another excellent year, maybe his market becomes stronger. Maybe another team offers him more, or maybe he decides that this is his last opportunity to maximize his earnings, and nobody could blame him. NBA careers are short. Players deserve to get paid. This is not a charity, but Josh Hart is also in a unique position because he's not just another player. He's already deeply connected to New York. He's built his media career here. He's built his family life here. He's part of the Knicks' identity, and after winning a championship, he may value staying here differently than he did 2 years ago. And this is where the extension becomes bigger than Josh Hart, because the Knicks are not just negotiating with him, they're trying to preserve an entire championship ecosystem with guys like Brunson, Cat, OG, Mikal, Hart, Deuce, Jose Alvarado, and Jordan Clarkson, and now these young players that they're hoping can eventually contribute cheaply. That's a lot of money, and eventually the Knicks are going to have to make uncomfortable decisions just like they did this summer with Mitchell Robinson. That's why Brunson's sacrifice mattered so much. That's why Hart's decision matters as well. And that's why Karl-Anthony Towns' eventual extension is going to be absolutely massive. Every dollar that Hart takes is a dollar the Knicks cannot use somewhere else, but every dollar that Hart leaves on the table is potentially another piece that allows this team to remain together. Personally, I think the Knicks should absolutely try to get this done earlier, but I would not go crazy. I would offer Josh Hart around 3 years, $60 million, and I'd make it clear this is the number that allows us to keep you while also keeping the championship team around you. If Hart says I want $70 or $80 million, then the conversation gets much more complicated, because at that point, you're paying a 32-year-old player into his mid-30s while also trying to extend Cat. That's dangerous, but if Hart is willing to stay around $20 million per year, I think that's a win for everybody. The Knicks keep their heart and soul, no pun intended. Hart gets guaranteed money through the age of 35, and New York preserves enough flexibility to keep competing down the road. And that's why I think Josh Hart's next contract could tell us a lot about the future of the Knicks, because Jalen Brunson already showed us what sacrifice can look like and the results of it. Now we get to see whether someone else is willing to do it. Josh Hart has already given this franchise everything. He played through injuries, he fought for every possession, he rebounded against guys that are a half a foot taller. He became one of the most important players on a championship team without ever needing to be a star. Now he has earned the right to decide what comes next. Does he chase the biggest contract possible, or does he say, I want to finish this thing in New York and keep my stability? Because if Josh Hart takes a little less than he can, and Cat eventually does something similar, and the Knicks keep developing cheap young talent, this championship window could stay open a lot longer than people expect. So now I want to hear from you. What's the maximum contract you would give Josh Hart? 3 years, 4 years, $60 million, or $70 million? Or do you let him play out his current deal and see what happens afterwards? Let me know in the comments, and if you enjoyed the video, make sure you like, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.